Is this line secure?
Definitely.
Okay. The last thing I want is to run afoul of your government.
It's not our government, but we understand.
So you were part of the group that came to see Jesus when he was a toddler.
I was a graduate intern in the Department of Astronomy at our university. My advisor and several of his colleagues had noticed some unusual astronomical phenomenon, possibly a supernova or a hypernova,
Astro what, Mechanova?
a really big star.
Oh.
You live several thousand miles away. What made you guys decide to come here?
My advisor was quite interested in the intersection between ancient prophecies and astronomical phenomenon. He was fascinated by the idea that comets could signal the beginning of war, or stars could herald the birth of a king. With some occurrence about this particular event, he recalled something that he read about your culture about stars and kings. He proposed to our department that this would be a fascinating case study.
How many of you were there? 3?
I don't recall. More than 3. I was just an intern, so it was my job to record data, calculate the trajectories of various constellations, and get coffee.
How did you end up where Jesus was?
We didn't initially. We figured a king would be born in a place of importance, so we initially went to the governor's palace, where I believe your prefect lives.
We wouldn't exactly refer to her as our prefect. More like the Empire flunky assigned to us.
I see. Well, back then, it was one of your own people. I believe he actually made some sort of claim at royal lineage. Regardless, we told him about the star, and that we were there to give gifts to the newly born prince. Of course, the prefect told us that there was no baby or toddler whatsoever. It was quite embarrassing for my advisor.
Then how did you ever find Jesus?
The prefect was still quite interested in our story, so we stayed in the governor's palace for several days, while the scholars and religious advisors examined your cultural scriptures. Eventually, he pointed us in the correct general direction and requested that we let him know where the baby was.
Did he say why?
He said it was so he could go honor the baby also, to which we readily agreed. We later realized it was because he wanted to eliminate anything that challenged his power. In hindsight, it's crazy that he was so threatened by a baby.
So how did you find him?
We asked around. The stories about the night he was born had spread around in whispers. People didn't talk about it out loud for fear that the Empire would find him, or worse, that it was all fake. Fortunately for us, they were in the same place where he was born. His family's paperwork was still being processed, and the Empire wouldn't let them return home. They were stuck.
Your advisor thought that Jesus might be some sort of king, right?
Correct.
So what did he think when he found this poor, displaced family living in a motel?
He was confused. No one said anything while we were there, but some of the advisors on the trip mocked him on the way back. My advisor was a very distinguished man. He was an award-winning scholar in his field and quite well off financially. None of us, in fact, had ever seen anyone living in such poor conditions. His confusion quickly gave way to compassion. He eagerly gave away the presents that we brought.
So he didn't think that Jesus was a king?
I think that he held out hope. He sincerely believed this baby was special, even though the evidence pointed in a different direction.
You mentioned that the prefect wanted you to tell him about where Jesus was. Why didn't your group do that?
It might sound kind of odd.
You do realize that this is a story in which you followed a star halfway around the world to find a baby king.
That's a fair point. It was a dream. Several of us had very vivid dreams in which we were warned not to go back to the prefect. He was planning some horrible things. To his dying day, my advisor regretted ever going to the governor's palace in the first place.
Did he regret the trip?
No. He spoke of the day we spent with that young family often. Like I said, I think he believed that something amazing was going to happen with that toddling boy. He kept waiting for word from your part of the world that he led some sort of uprising. But my advisor died a handful of years ago. Do you know what his last words were to me?
What?
The child will lift his people up. Just you watch. So whatever happened to him?
That is a pretty incredible story.